Hi everyone and welcome back to another video. My name is Lukas Engström and you're watching my YouTube series about Taiwan and Taiwanese international news. To let everyone know what the world is saying about Taiwan nowadays, since tourists are still not allowed to come here and visit. But as you can see, today I have decorated the studio in the colors of yellow and blue, since we today are going to focus on Taiwan related news from Sweden, the country of IKEA, Volvo and Lukas Engström. So for you who don't know, my name is Lukas Engström. I'm originally from Sweden, but I have lived in Taiwan for the past 8 years. If that is news to you, then most likely you are not subscribing to my channel. So please do me a favor, support me and this channel by hitting that subscribe button and that bell as well, so you get notified as soon as I release new videos. Last week we talked about news from the American international news networks CNN and NYT, or New York Times. This week we're gonna focus on the European, usually not so international, Swedish news network NWT, the new newspaper of Värmland, or as the 300,000 people living in the region of Värmland is calling it, Nya Värmlandstidningen. For the record, Värmland might be the best region of Sweden, and by pure coincidence, also the region where I grew up, where I played around in the forest and learned how to swim in the lake just outside of our house. And Nya Värmlandstidningen was of course the newspaper we read every day at home. Now don't let the name fool you, this magazine has been called the new newspaper of Värmland since its first cover in 1882. That means that this newspaper is older than the Japanese invasion of Taiwan 1895. But you will notice that once this paper decides to put a title on something, they will not change it for any reason, not even almost 240 years of history, and especially not angry letters from the Chinese embassy in Stockholm after publishing an article talking about the great country of Taiwan. That's right, Swedish media, both regional and national magazines, are no stranger to mentioning Taiwan in the news. This year, obviously COVID-19 and with that Taiwan for obvious reasons have created big headlines, and Taiwan is actually producing the COVID-19 test we use back home in Sweden to conduct around 1,800 tests every day. Now, sadly, on a not so positive note, this news in particular is from one of our largest national magazines, Aftonbladet, where they talk about one of these shipments of tests from Taiwan has sadly been delayed, so we will be falling behind on the COVID tests for the next couple of weeks. But to Taiwan's defense, the airspace around here has been getting quite crowded lately, so I do understand if the pilots wants to fly a little bit slower just to avoid some unwanted visitors in the cockpit. Now, I know we already talked about these Chinese warplanes in last week's video, but this news has of course been covered in Sweden as well, where they're referring to these Chinese warplanes as vapenskrammel, which, although I've been living here for 8 years, I don't think I'll ever be able to translate into Chinese, and not even English to be honest. But it basically means that China is doing this as a threat to maybe start to use weapons one day. But let's get back on the ground and back to Värmland, where we're gonna talk about 1010, or as the people in Idaho is calling it, Taiwan Double 10 Day. Good, I'm glad that you paid attention from last week's video. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you have definitely missed something. After you finish watching this video, go back, check out the first video in this series, just to stay yourself updated, and also make sure to subscribe to this channel so you don't miss any more videos. So, just in time for 1010, NWT, or Nya Värmlandstidningen, published an article with the title Taiwan Can Contribute to a Stronger United Nations, written by Vincent Yao. Now, you probably do not know who Mr. Yao is, but he is the boss of the Taiwan Representative Office in Sweden. The article is mainly focusing on how Taiwan has handled COVID-19, but also talks about how a lot of countries, Sweden included, has stood up for Taiwan and demanded that they should be included in the WHO. But as Mr. Yao clearly states, Taiwan is not looking for sympathy for the previous discrimination. Instead, we're looking for respect, as Taiwan has so much we can help with. Fast forward 2 weeks later to yesterday as I'm recording this video, and Taiwan is once again making headlines in Nya Värmlandstidningen, this time with the title "China does not decide over Taiwan, nor NWT." And the reason for this is since this first article was published, the magazine has received some very angry letters from the Chinese embassy in Stockholm, where the embassy is shocked and strongly unhappy with the article in the newspaper. But as the article mentioned, this is not the first time we receive a letter like this after writing about Taiwan. They claim we're violating the concept of one China, as if NWT is part of the Swedish government and not a standalone newspaper. But then again, what do they know about freedom of speech? Now, this might sound super weird. Why would China, a country with 1.4 billion people, care about what's being said in the regional newspaper Nya Värmlandstidningen with a local population of 300,000? Well, it turns out that NWT is not the only regional or national Swedish newspaper that have been receiving angry letters from the Chinese embassy. Apparently, we have received so many angry letters from the Chinese embassy, both to regional and national news magazines, that the Swedish Institute of International Affairs have put together an official report named China's Propaganda Campaign in Sweden, where they mention that China's government and its embassy in Stockholm have been conducting an intense campaign of public criticism of Swedish media outlets, journalists, scholars, human rights activists, political parties, and authorities. And they also provide a section where they list all the critical terms used by the Chinese embassy. But I honestly don't think it matters how extremely ridiculous these lies and media tyranny appears to the Chinese embassy, because as Nya Värmlandstidningen so proudly puts it, China does not decide over Taiwan, nor NWT. So I think that another 240 years from now, Swedish media will most likely continue to report about the beautiful country of Taiwan, the Chinese embassy will most likely continue to send out angry letters, and the new newspaper of Värmland will most likely still be called the new newspaper of Värmland. That was everything I had to report this week. Now, I am not a Chinese embassy in Stockholm, so I will not tell you what to do and what not to do. But if you want, it would mean a lot to me if you want to subscribe to my channel to show your support and also to stay updated of all the Taiwan related news both from Värmland and the rest of the world. My name is Lukas, starts with L as in like, ends with S as in subscribe. Please do both, and I'll see you in the next one.